Just a couple weeks ago, there was an event called FanFest 2026 where a lot of games were revealed, and most importantly, there were a ton of indie developers that had some promising projects that really caught my eye, and one in particular was Second Stone. Now, IGN and many other game sites had hands-on time with the game and gave their thoughts and opinions on it. What I didn't expect was Skyward Entertainment, the developers behind Second Stone, had contacted me personally and wanted me to actually give the game a try and have hands on and give my thoughts and opinions on it. And I can tell you one thing, after speaking with them over video call on Discord, these guys are really passionate about this project. So in this video, I want to give you my thoughts and opinions of what I feel about this project and if this project is something to look forward to for you guys. What I love most about the indie space when it comes to video games is that indie developers are essentially fans of a particular game or genre that they've grown up and loved and played for so long, to the point that they wanted to go out and create those games. And it's more so for the fact is that when there's not enough of it, especially way gaming is in the AAA space, when developers pivot away from a particular IP or a genre or a gameplay style because it's just too risky due to inflated cost of development, you always have indie developers to come in and pick up the slack and take on that mantle and push forward within that genre that they love the most. And that's what I love about this. So in the case of Second Stone, it's the same case right here. This is an action and adventure RPG, which takes inspirations from games like Zelda, where you explore dungeons in vast locations, solve puzzles and collectibles, and a bit of platforming, which is also pretty neat. And the combat is pretty much fun as well. But the thing that really hooked me in, besides the gameplay, it's visual art style. And you know me here on this channel, I talked about it before. I'm an advocate for stylized visuals when it comes to games, and I really think developers should lean into that more because it makes their projects, it makes their games look much more unique and stand out, and people can resonate and even associate that visual style with the developer and the game itself. And in this case, I think Second Stone has it hands down. And after speaking with the developers on the video call, I mentioned that it reminds me of Kenna. Kenna is that style that I really liked, and they pretty much smiled because the developer said that, yeah, Kenna is another cool game, and that's something that we took inspiration from too. And that makes one hell of a package. Zelda and Kenna, you mix it together, and now you have Second Stone. And what's so interesting about this between Kenna and the Second Stone, they both have spirits as far as the core theme of this. And what do I mean by this? When it comes to Second Stone in the story, about 1,000 years ago, when the world was pretty much in its creation phase, each of the 6 days of creation is named after 6 different elements. And by the end of all this, 2 stones were created to balance the world of creation itself, which is dusk and dawn stones. But these stones were scattered and was never found. And throughout humanity, or in this world, people lived in peace and harmony. And each person, each individual has, I would say, like a guardian spirit that's attached to them. But there's this one particular boy that was found by this hero who didn't have a spirit that's a guardian spirit attached to them. So this boy was known as a curse because he didn't have a spirit amongst everybody else. But the hero has raised this boy, and eventually this boy have grown up to be an adventurer. And this young man is the main protagonist, whose name is Sharon. And now that he's old enough, he sets out on the adventure to find his lost spirit. Now, as I said before, the Second Stone takes heavy inspiration from Legend of Zelda, and that is a good thing because when it comes to Legend of Zelda, exploration is its core DNA, and the same can be said about Second Stone. I found myself exploring every nook and cranny for stones that allow me to upgrade Sharon in his stats and also his weapons, which allows me to get special abilities and perks. And when you get these special abilities, it allows you to expand the scope of your explorations because you don't have access to certain areas on the map until you have a particular or a certain ability that allow you to traverse even farther within the level, which you will find yourself backtracking back and forth once you have access to that. So while you're exploring, you find yourself solving puzzles like Legend of Zelda by pushing pillars and also lighting candles to pretty much light up the area so you can clear the path to allow you to have more visibility, and also clearing bosses and enemies in order for certain doors and passageways to open as well. And there's some cool underwater traversing that you have to do in order to reach certain locations. So you do feel like an adventure, something that Sharon himself himself actually is. And once you get that map and you actually open up the map, each location definitely feel distinct, and these locations are very vast. So I found myself, before moving on to the next location, I try to explore every nook and cranny of it until I can't explore it anymore, because I don't want to miss out on any special goodies that are available. And also, if you're into mini games and you're into card battle games, there are also cards scattered among the map to allow you to build your deck to engage and battle against other NPCs in this card battle system, which we'll talk about later on in this impression video. Now, the combat is very simple. I mean, anybody can be able to hop in. If you've never played an action adventure RPG, you'll feel right at home. You'll be able to get in, adapt, and learn. Now, despite it being this simple, it's still a lot to learn and master when it comes to the combat, because movement is very important. Now, Sharon can only equip 2 weapons at a time. Now, each weapon has its own attack animations. You have your light and you have your heavy. By tapping the light button 3 times, he does like a 3-hit combo. Tapping the heavy is normally a 1 strike attack, but it's very hard hitting, and it can sometimes break the defense of the enemy and weaken them. And you can actually hold the heavy button down to actually charge it. Now, as I said before, when you start the game, you only have 2 weapons that you can equip on your left hand or your right hand, and you can be able to swap them on the fly by tapping right on the directional pad. Now, the 2 weapons you start off with is the dual daggers and a single hand sword. But as I progress through the demo, I end up having access to a great sword and also a bow and arrow. Now, each weapon has its own play style, and you pretty much equip the weapons that fit your play style, so you can swap them left and right on the fly, in order to, I guess you would say, address whatever situation that you're in when you encounter a particular enemy. Now, what's most important is when you encounter these enemies, a lot of these enemies have their own patterns, so you do have to study the pattern of your enemy in order to figure out how to engage them, especially when it comes to the bosses. And I must say that the boss encounters are the fun part of the combat, because each boss feels unique, especially when you get into the temple, which has this roguelike mechanics. And each of those boss, my God, really test your patience, your reflexes. And man, I found myself like getting salty every time I failed those particular boss fights. But that's the fun part. And I didn't think that developers at Skyward Entertainment could come up with something as creative of how to approach each boss encounter. So yes, each boss encounter in some form, shape, or form feels like a puzzle. And you have to really pay attention to the environment, pay attention to the location, and what makes the bosses respond, and how to open up their weak points. So if this game continues to have each boss feel like that, I think you guys are definitely in for a treat when it comes to these boss fights. Now, as far as upgrading Sharon himself, this is where the gameplay mechanics start to get a bit deep, because you collect these stones throughout the entire time. And that's why I said that exploration is really important, because these stones are scattered throughout the map. Some you just don't have access to, while others you do. And each stone has its own different elements and what they can do to upgrade Sharon. And the fun part about it is each of your equipment, whether it's your armor, whether it's your pendants, your accessories, or your weapons, they all have stones. Now, when you click on the stones on your weapons, you can choose the stones that you have collected to be able to boost and upgrade Sharon's stats. And in most cases, you also get different passive abilities and buffs, and also abilities that allows you to pretty much be destructive, and it changed the properties of particular attacks. You have your wind, you have your ice or water, and you also have fire, which is also awesome, and then lightning. So every time you upgrade, you can change the properties. Sometimes you can just shoot one orb, and then when you upgrade to get it, and go from 1 orb to 3 projectiles at a time. So there's a lot of things you can pretty much swap back and forth with Sharon himself. So whatever style works for you. And then enemies also have status effects that affects them. So some enemies can get burned. Some of them have like this poison effect. So there's a lot you can mess around with. So whatever your play style is, and you found the best play style for Sharon, then you can run with that build. So there's room for customization. So it's not just your simple hack and slash. There's a lot involved. enemy patterns, upgrading Sharon to get the best abilities and perks in order for you to really flesh out the character. And then, as I said before, intriguing and incredible and diverse boss encounters, which is pretty cool. Now, when it comes to the card battle system, I think this is, I wouldn't say this is like a thing that I dislike or whatever, because when it comes to mini games in any type of game, I'm not really a mini game guy. But after I keep collecting these cards, I feel as though that I may be missing out if I don't engage with the card battle system. And the funny part about it was, once I entered the village where Sharon resides and where he lives, there's a bunch of different NPCs that has cards, and you can be able to battle them. Now, the funny part about it was, soon I dived into the card battle system, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just pressing buttons, trying to figure it out. I was like, where's the instructions to this game? I'm just playing it. Soon I got into the village, I addressed the first person and they wanted to battle me, got into a battle, got my ass kicked, and didn't know what to do. And I started exploring the town even more, battling more NPCs, and as I started learning, I started getting better and better at the game itself. And then soon as I cleared out all the NPCs in the town, as far as the card battling system is concerned, I get back to the very beginning, but all the way to the right of the town. I found this one house where they actually teach you the game. So I'm not sure if it's something my fault or there needs to be a player at the very beginning of the town in order to get the instructions on how to play, because I learned how to play through trial and error, only to find out that the house all the way on the right is where you go in order to get the instructions on how to play. So I found that part kind of funny. And then also there is stone customization. You can actually merge stones together in order to increase in Sharon's abilities and increase to create other type of abilities, which I think is pretty cool. And they all have a cooldown period. It's once you go to and create these stones, you have to wait to a certain time period, 2 minutes, sometimes 3 minutes, and you have to wait till the stones are done, because I guess depending on how powerful these stones are determines on how much time it takes to craft these stones. But I think this is also a neat mechanic, and this also reinforces why exploration is very, very important. Now, another mechanic which I thought was interesting, and it also has some inspiration from Legend of Zelda. I mean, Legend of Zelda is not the only one that has this mechanic, but there is a dark world and light world, which also, if you pay attention to the story where I talk about the Dust Stone and also the Dawn Stone, I think this is where we come into the whole mechanic of dusk and dawn, because the main Sharon himself, for some strange reason, are getting these illusions, and he can't really make any sense of it, but he ends up coming across this one particular plant that lights up. He falls asleep and wake up, and he's in his dark world that's very inverse of the light world, and enemies are much harder. You can't find your way, and the enemies are shrouded in darkness, which you can't hurt them unless you light your path in order to use light against the darkness in order to hurt the enemies. But what's so cool about it is that once you find these particular these flowers that lights up, you're able to teleport back to the light world. And once you teleport back to the light world, the map is different. So now you have to solve puzzles and also solve subquests with other NPCs that requires you to go both in the light world and dark world. Sometimes you don't have access to certain things in the light world, so you have to go to the dark world and solve whatever that problem is first, and then go back to the light world in order to progress. So, man, that is another mechanic that they added more layer to the gameplay that's also going to be fun, and I can't wait to see how much more involved that this mechanic is going to be. But yes, that's also another reason why exploration is important as well. Now, there's also an upgrade mechanic where you have this tablet and you have to use the various different beads in order to equip and place on Sharon that also buffs him up as a character and also give him other special abilities. And with this tablet, you also have to find these beads to open up certain doors. And it reminds me of a collectathon that you will find in like Mario 64 or Banjo-Kazooie and things like that, where you have to collect these beads in order to have access to other locations to pretty much further expand your exploration. And I think it's a really neat mechanic, and I can't wait to see how much more fleshed out it becomes when the full game comes out. Now, most importantly is what I find really refreshing about this game is the music. You can tell that these developers at Skyward Entertainment are fans of old school JRPGs or just games in the early 90s and early 2000s, because man, some of the songs is just a treat to listen to. I found myself sitting the controller down for a little bit just to sit back while I'm eating chips or I'm just eating food and just listening to the music. You know, you'll find some of that Legend of Zelda, but if not just Legend of Zelda, some of the songs feel like they can fit in a Chrono game, like Chrono Trigger or Chrono Cross, and it really poured me into the world and immerse me. So I would say whoever the music composer is, I say you've done a good job, and I'm looking forward to see what other soundtracks or music themes that they that's in this game, because you guys truly nailed the music. I think the only gripe that I have is just like I guess you say the technical aspect of the game. Sometimes the game would freeze on me, or sometimes when I attack, the game locked up. And as I said before, this is like an early access, so this could just be something that will be ironed out once the full game comes out. But sometimes, it wasn't all the time, but sometimes the game would freeze and lock up for a little bit, and then it would start running just fine. And also when it comes to certain cutscenes where the cutscenes look beautiful, I mean beautiful, and then when characters get to talking, there's no voices. And I'm not sure if, like I said, it could be early access and they didn't put all the voices there yet, but it's kind of jarring seeing these beautiful visuals and it's very cinematic, and then when the characters start talking, there's no sound coming out, and I have to read, the subtitles at the bottom while trying to engage with the beautiful cinematics that's going on the screen. But as I said before, there could be just a technical issue for it being early access, and it may not just be the game itself. So we just have to wait and see. So I'm not going to be just too harsh on that. But overall, I had a good time with Second Stone. And if you guys are into roguelike games, there's a temple in there that I explained before that's just purely roguelike, and to see how far you can go through the different dungeon floors, and each floor has different challenges and then different unique bosses, and I think you'll definitely love that. So there's a variety of other gameplay aspects that you'll love in this game, and I think that if you're into classic action adventure role-playing games, you're definitely going to love this, especially if you love Legend of Zelda exploration, puzzle solving, and combat of this type of genre. You'll definitely find some entertainment here, and I'm looking forward to see what Skyward Entertainment produces moving forward when it comes to the full release of the game. So I definitely want to hear your thoughts on this. If this is something that you'll play, because I can't wait for the full release because I'm definitely going to play this game. But this is something that I suggest you keep an eye out on. I'll post a link in the description to Skyward Entertainment and also to the Steam page itself for you to be able to wish list it, and if this is something that you really enjoy. But definitely let me know your thoughts in the comment sections below. And also, are you looking forward, or would you like to see me cover more indie games in the near future? So definitely let me know. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you Game Fiends later. Peace out.